Hi, I'm Brian Lamort. I'm a Mitsubishi heat pump install specialist. After having heat pumps in my house for several years and installing hundreds and hundreds for other people, I've found I've had to have a lot of the same discussions, and people have the same questions and problems, and sometimes it goes unresolved for a long time, and it's totally unnecessary. So I figured I'd share some of the knowledge I've gained over the years. Uh, First thing, when you take your hand controller for your heat pump system and you want to change something, whether it's turning it on, temperature, fan speed, aiming it, you got to either point it at the unit or make sure that it beeps. If you hit a button on the controller and the unit does not beep, it didn't get your signal, and it may say something on the controller, but that's not what it's going to do. I've had a customer set theirs to 80 degrees, but he always aimed it into the light, and it didn't receive a signal. And I showed up to the house to figure out why it was cold. I pointed it at it, and within seconds it was blowing high and really hot. So not everybody hears the beep because their hearing's not the best for whatever reason. And for those people, I tell them just point it at the unit, and that is probably going to work just fine. Another good thing to know is the controllers are all interchangeable. I can take one from my living room and go down to my kids' rooms and use it to turn down all three of them. That works fine. If you lose one controller, if your dog eats it, if it breaks, use a different one. You could just go on Amazon and buy another controller as long as it's compatible with that particular kind of unit. It's going to work. It's not paired to the unit. It's not really that complicated, which I think is a very good thing. A good thing to know is that the units tend to have a temperature offset so that it's super normal for the unit to read 4 degrees or so different than the actual room. If you have it set at 70 degrees, it might actually be 66 in your room. That doesn't mean it's broken. It means you should just turn it up if you want it at 70. So what I tell my customers is to worry less about what the number says on the controller and just set it so that they're comfortable. In in bedrooms and in smaller rooms, generally using auto fan speed is okay. The unit's trying to save you money. It wants to run on the lowest fan speed that it possibly can, and that works great. If you have a really big room, open concept house, something like that, it might not work that well if it's really cold or really hot out without actually taking over the fan speed, because the unit's trying to save you money when you want it to push air further to heat up the whole space. If you take the unit and you put it on high fan, it might actually shove air around the corner more and even out the whole room. So if you have a large room and you're getting hot or cold spots, or you're starting to freeze because it's negative 10 outside, you'll be amazed how putting it on fan speed 4 will dramatically change how it operates. It's a completely different machine when you put it on high speed. You go from being too cold and never being warm enough to it can cook you out of the room in an hour. And once you know that it can do that, then you can modulate the fan speed for what you need. If it's not super cold out, you can probably put it back into auto fan or set it on 2 or 3 and you'll be happy with it. But when you get into sub-zero temperatures, you need to get the most output out of the unit. And I've seen people go for years thinking the unit didn't work well when it was really cold out, and they had it locked in low gear. So just putting it on fan speed 4 solves that problem. When I want to troubleshoot a unit and I want to see what it's capable of doing, I turn it up to 85 degrees and I put it on high fan. And it is shocking how much heat they put out when you do that to them. It is normal for a unit to go into defrost mode in the winter, and when it does for 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to ignore all of your controls. Because the reality is it puts the unit into air conditioning mode for a few minutes so that it can heat up the outside unit. When that happens, water pours off of the outside unit if you were watching, and on the inside, it just seems to go quiet. It might have 2 lights on, might not, but if you adjust the fan or aim it or turn it up or down, it's going to appear to ignore you. So if the controller ever doesn't seem to be doing what you want at any given moment, there's a pretty good chance if you come back in 10 or 15 minutes that's now going to be okay. A good thing to know is how to operate a heat pump if you have a wood stove. I recommend everybody always just use heat mode or cool mode and never use auto mode. If you light a wood stove or a space heater or any other source of heat and the room gets warm, in auto mode, it's going to switch to AC in that room, which will mean the other units connected to it will probably stop working and it'll appear to malfunction or be broken, when that's really more what I call user error mode, because the units all have to be either heating or cooling at the same time. Super important. It's going to cause problems if you don't do that. So with the wood stove in heat, the room gets really hot because of the wood stove, and instead of turning the AC on, it simply turns itself down. The fan blows gently, mixes the air in the room a little bit, but when the wood stove goes out, as the temperature gets close to the set point on the heat pump will very gently turn itself on, and you don't necessarily really hear it or feel it, but you wake up, realize your fire went out, but your house isn't freezing. So that's really the best way to use it. Having a wood stove for backup heat is great. It's carbon neutral and it works when the power is out. If the wood stove goes out, or you break your ankle, or you just don't feel like lighting it that day, that's okay. Your heat pump will just automatically work. And when the wood stove is going, it uses very little power at all, so you're not wasting any energy and you don't need to worry about pipes freezing. So don't turn them off with your wood stove. Just leave it on heat and it'll just automatically do its thing and you don't really have to think about it. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this particular video is humidity control. There's a little drop setting on your Mitsubishi controller. Looks like a teardrop, and that's the humidity mode. Do not ever use it unless your house is flooded, like standing water, because regular AC will dehumidify your house beautifully. Dehumidification mode turns your house into a meat locker. It runs max AC to get maximum dehumidification, and I can almost guarantee you do not need that. It's going to get too cold, and you can't control the temperature, so there's just really no advantage in using the dehumidification mode at all. I recommend you keep your windows shut at night all the time in the summer when you're running the AC. It keeps humidity from even getting in the house at all. It keeps pollen out of your house and dust, allergens, things like that. And it's not so much that the filter captures the allergens as it keeps them out of your house because your windows are shut. Every time you open the windows, you let in humidity. If you open the windows at night and turn off the AC to save money, your house is going to be clammy, because when you shut the windows, it's now humid inside and it's cool, so the AC doesn't run at all. And if the AC isn't running, you don't get any dehumidification whatsoever. The solution to that is to actually switch it to heat mode for about 15 minutes, warm the house a few degrees, then turn it back to AC, but you can see how you're not really gaining very much in energy savings doing that. If you want to turn the AC off and just have fresh air, then just do that, but constantly turning it on and off to try to save money intermittently, it's really not going to save you that much money. I'd rather just see you be happy and keep your windows shut, keep it cool and dry, and keep the pollen out. That's it for this video. I've got another one coming shortly about troubleshooting. Things you can fix yourself, things you can't fix yourself, and when you need to know it's time to call somebody to repair it.